It is that time of the show where we turn our attention over to the markets. No shortage of factors influencing trade this week. We were joined in studio by Heartland Farm Partners President Jeff Peterson to get his take on what producers need to be keeping their eyes on. Here's our conversation from Wednesday afternoon. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us. As we sit here on Wednesday afternoon, corn, soybeans, and wheat all closing double digits higher today. Tell us about the corn and soybean markets right now and what you make of the trade.
You know, what's interesting right now, Alex, is that this market's been, ever since we got out the January crop report, it's really been a readjustment. And the readjustment literally started everything was the tightening up of the stocks because we ended up bringing that yield down more than expected. And so the easiest way for us to always look at this market and say, hey, were we fairly valued or not, and what could the market do, is we take that ending stocks divided by total demand, and we come up with a 10.2% stocks to use ratio. And that 10.2% stocks ratio would suggest at this time that fair value for corn is probably in the $4.95 to $5 areas. Interesting enough, today, as we talk about on Wednesday, $4.97 is where we're closed. So we're coming into that area of fair value. Now, the balancing act, though, is that you've got the speculative traders that are long on the corn and the soybean side. They continue to want to buy this market. We've got uncertainty about weather in South America and the planting pace of the safrinha corn crop. And looming over all of this is the talk about tariffs. And that's really the whole situation we're kind of dealing with in the markets right now.
Okay, let's dive into those factors. South American forecast has really played a role in this week's trade. What do you see right now?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because we come into this time of year and what we're looking for is you'd really like to see some dry conditions happen in Mato Grosso, and that hasn't been the case. And as a matter of fact, the current forecast, according to the European model, actually has some wetter conditions coming again where they'll give already too much rain into an area that's had some extremely wet conditions. And then you go further south into the southeast part, get down into Paraná, Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina. Those areas have actually been a little bit too dry, but the even drier conditions happen as you get on down into Argentina. Now, not all the major producing areas in Argentina are too dry. Cordoba, for instance, which produces about 30% of their production, it's probably okay, but you take Buenos Aires and Santa Fe, Entre Rios, those states have actually been, too dry overall, and there is additional dryness there. So as you look at that weather, the dryness is causing that crop to go ahead and tighten up on the corn and the soybean side in Argentina. The wetness isn't probably a real big factor on the soybean production side, outside of there are some quality issues, but it's a bigger factor on that safrinha corn crop. And the big concern is in particular in Mato Grosso, where right now, if we look back, this is the slowest planting pace on the safrinha corn crop going all the way back to 2011. Now, there's a few other years where yields are similar, 2011, 16, and 2021. Those years were all late planted, got started late, and as a result of that, the yields came in much lower than is expected. Now, the big concern about that is everything we've talked about so far, we've actually got a tightening ending stocks, not only in the U.S., but also in the world. So those tightening stocks, what it's counting on is a big crop coming out of safrinha, and so far it isn't delivering. So we're going to have to watch that close.
You also mentioned the talk about tariffs, trade relationships with other countries. Obviously a big conversation right now as the Trump administration comes into play. How concerned are corn and soybean markets right now? Are they reacting to that type of news?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as we dig into that and sit back and look at it, this is something that's been talked about for a long time. A lot of people will say that, well, it's already factored in, but there's a few things that I want to kind of just hit on here that I think are important. The thing about it on the tariff side, I think we have to kind of differentiate here. The tariffs are not the end goal. The tariffs are really a tool to use to cause change. And I think the big uncertainty is you'll hear February 1st talked about. And in particular, we'll hear 25% tariff on Canada, 25% tariff on Mexico, maybe a 10% tariff on China. But then also you have Jeff Peterson, the head of the Treasury, also saying, well, maybe we'll come out with a 2.5%. And a lot of people say, oh, do they not know what they're doing? Well, I think really what it is it really depends on how the other countries come to the table and respond. Because what we know in the previous administration, when Trump was as a president, ultimately he used tariffs and was willing to do it. The other thing that I think is important to realize and to see, look what happened with Colombia. Colombia, all of a sudden, we want to deport and take individuals back to their country that had come into our country illegally. And as a result of that, what ended up happening? Okay, we're going to put tariffs. You don't want to do that? They try to counter. All right, great. We'll go to 50%. Oh, Colombia goes, no, wait. Okay, now everything's fine. So I think what it proved is that, okay, Trump isn't just talking that he physically will talk about tariffs, he will do it. So as a result, it is a big deal to the market, but the market's very uncertain in regard to what's going to happen. So as a result, it trades the other items until it sees otherwise.
Yeah. A lot of countries in play in that conversation, as
there
you
definitely
mentioned.
is.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, let's round it out with this for producers back home. All of this coming down to that grain marketing plan. What do producers need to be thinking about right now?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be thinking about right now. They need to make sure they understand where they are on their break evens. In addition to that, they want to focus currently on what's their cash flow needs to get enough grain moved. But I think the biggest thing that we have right now, as these markets are moving higher, we do need to take advantage and make some old crop sales, rewarding this market that's going on. We also need to look to the new crop side, and then new crop, I think it's time that we should get started on sales also.